Welcome to Beyond Six Figures, the podcast that helps business coaches to micro-niche, get noticed, and become fully booked. Learn from top industry leaders who've successfully taken their businesses and their lives beyond six figures. Get ready to level up your coaching business and make this world a better place, one business at a time. And now, here's your host, Ziv Raviv.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Six Figures. Our guest today is Alice Heiman, the Chief Sales Energizer behind Alice Heiman LLC. And she's also the host of Sales Talk for CEOs. She helps B2B founders and leadership teams modernize complex sales, align go-to-market around how buyers actually buy, and ultimately grow company valuations. With roots at the legendary Miller Heiman and a no-nonsense stance on what works now, Alice brings a playbook CEOs can use to create revenue momentum without restoring to old school tactics. Hello, Alice Heiman. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on this show.
It's a pleasure. So you have been helping people with their sales, with training around the topic of sales. You've been helping people with go-to-market strategies and growth. But I want to start with where you grew as a business woman and as a coach and hear your origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you had asked me when I was young if I would be here where I am today, I would have been like, oh, absolutely not. Like I would have had no idea, right? Wouldn't even have known how to frame it. But I'll give you the short story because for 13 years before I went into business, I was a public school teacher. A lot of people don't know that, but it actually was a great start for what I do now because I studied. Well, actually, I first went to college to be an artist, believe it or not. And I got midway through and said, oh my gosh, how will I make a living? And then somehow I got the idea to be a teacher. And then I got into special education. So I learned in college how to help people change their behavior, which is really what I do now today. Not knowing then, right, that I would ever do this, but was a public school teacher for 13 years. I taught special education. I taught some elementary grades for a couple of years, and I got a master's degree and became a reading specialist. And so I was specializing in helping kids to learn to read and write. So there's a big behavior change also, right? It's also about mindset a lot of times in education. When kids aren't learning, somehow they got the idea that they can't learn. And so that holds them back. And it's the same with what I do today. Salespeople, CEOs, sales leaders get the idea that they can't somehow, and then they don't. And so we have to change behavior. So after I was teaching for 13 years, I went to work, as you mentioned, at Miller Heiman with my dad, Steve Heiman, and his partner, Bob Miller, who I've known since I was 3 years old. By the time I went to work for the company, though, my dad, Steve Heiman, and my stepmom, Diane Sanchez Heiman, had purchased the company from Bob, and they were leading it and asked me to come and work for them. So I did, but I was a teacher, remember? I wasn't a salesperson, had no idea about that. And so I came on to their company to actually work on the curriculum, the sales curriculum that they were teaching for strategic selling, conceptual selling, large account management, and managers coaching programs. And so I did that at first. But then it became very obvious to me as a teacher and curriculum expert that once I reformulated these programs, I needed to stand up and teach them to make sure the flow was good. So my dad said to me, now, Alice, remember, teaching salespeople isn't like teaching kindergarten. and so I said, okay, how did I know? Truth is, it's a little bit like teaching kindergarten, but we won't go there right now. So I did that and became one of the best instructors that Miller Heiman had, and then started training the trainers to be instructors and managing some of the company's largest accounts, Coca-Cola, Hewlett-Packard, AT&T, Fidelity Investments, GE Capital, lots of big ones, right? But that all happened in a really short time period because when I started to work for my dad, I didn't know he was interested in selling the company. So I also learned at a very young age how to prepare a company for sale and how to exit. And so that is something that's also helped me tremendously with all of the clients I work with today. So my dad did successfully exit the company in 1998. And by that time, I had already started my own company, knowing that there was probably not going to be any place for me at this new company that was purchased by a PE firm. So this was in the late 90s. And here I was working with all these Fortune 500 companies. It was the .com time. And here I am now on my own. I had kept a few of my clients for a while, but then, of course, the people who bought Miller Heiman wanted someone else to take those over, and they did. But interestingly enough, Ziv, the senior leaders I had worked with from those companies were fleeing those large corporations and going to these .coms. They were calling me and saying, hey, can you come help us? Right? So that's how I got started working with smaller founder-led companies. And that was a lot of fun. And here I am again on my own. It was just me. I had a bookkeeper. That was about it. And I'm trying to help these companies start up a sales team from scratch, something that I had no idea how to do. But we figured it out together. And many of them were successful. A lot of them were not, because that .com time was crazy. And then from there, I moved into working with CEOs of still technology companies, but more mature companies, and advising and coaching them on how to increase their sales and therefore increase their valuation, because we do it profitably, so that they had lots of options. They could exit, they could take on debt or equity, they could make acquisitions. And that's what I still now do today. Now I'm a little bit of a bigger team than I was back then, but I still do all of the selling and all of the delivery. And then I have a team around me to support everything else in my business so I can focus on my customers.
So it's such a great story, a great journey for you, from being trained in sales and working with huge companies, that training them, and seeing your dad's company going through the valuation and being and exiting, and then starting to work with smaller businesses at around 2000 or so, and figuring out all the things that needed to be figured out in the trenches with your clients until they get to the point where they get results. And later on, until today, doing sales even by yourself and doing the sales and the training. So I want to start by trying to wear the devil's advocate hat, because over the last 25 years of you constantly figuring out sales, teaching sales, training sales, doing sales, right? You've been in the trenches for 25 years for your own company, even more. And things change all the time. There's new algorithms, like the .com phenomena. We now have that twice a year. We have some big change with the platforms, the social media accounts, and the generation changes, the algorithm changes. And nowadays with AI, where do we even start? So how do you keep up? How do you keep up, Alice?
Oh my gosh. I am telling you, it is getting harder and harder, right? But I spend a good portion of every week learning, and I can't imagine not doing that, right? And I always have. And I think it's one of the key things for any type of advisor or coach to keep in mind. You have to stay ahead of where your clients are, right? Or you're useless to them. And so right now, of course, with this AI explosion, I'm not an AI expert, but I'm learning every single day. And I'm trying to think about the strategy of my own company using AI and how I would do that, so then I can learn better how to apply that to my customers. But I do a lot of different things to keep up. One, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like to hear what others are thinking, what they're doing. And then I also listen to some podcasts that are not business related, that just help me be creative and think differently. So that's one way. And podcasts are easy because I like to walk. I walk a lot, and I want to do something while I'm walking. So I listen to a podcast, and that's great too. Now, I do want to say this to all of you business owners out there and coaches and leaders, right? That sometimes you should just let your mind be free. You shouldn't always keep it busy. So sometimes when I walk, I also don't listen, right? Because we need that open air time to just be creative and think. But anyway, that's one of the ways. I also read a lot of books. Now, recently, I've been using more audiobooks and really loving that. But I find that I'll listen to the book, the business book, and then I will buy a copy and mark it up so I can refer back to it. So it's a real learning process for me, but that's the way I tend to learn really well. If I listen to the book and I think, oh, this has got a lot of value, I buy a copy and I start marking it up. Now, the other great thing about that is I'm working in the backyard or in the kitchen or wherever I'm listening to a book. It's great. So that's because, like everyone else, I don't have a lot of time. Not only do I run my business, right? I have a family and I have grandkids that need my attention. So I want to be able to do all of it, right? The other way that I learn is I'm in groups where there's a lot of learning going on. So I was in a mastermind group for many years, and we were always bringing new topics to the forefront. That was fantastic. There are so many great CEO groups out there for business owners, entrepreneurs, whatever type, if it's tech, there's so many groups. You got to find one, right? And right now, I just recently joined a group called Pavilion, and I'm just floored at how much information I can get from these people. And then they also have all this curriculum that's built out that you can go and learn. So you've got to find those places where you can get the information you need and get it quickly. I've also always used a coach. So when I need to learn something quickly, I don't just depend on trying to learn it myself. I will find a person who is an expert in that and have them coach me in it so I can get the information more quickly. So I invest in my own learning in many ways by actually paying someone to teach me what I need to know. Now, sometimes I don't need to know it. Someone else needs to know it, and I'll just pay an expert to actually do it. But when I need to learn it, I use all those many methods. But if I got to go fast, I want to get an expert. I can ask the exact questions and learn what I need to know so that I can keep going.
I love it. And you shared many of the great ways to keep up with the times, the books, the programs, having a coach, and so on. But I want to reference to one additional thing that I think that you're actually doing. And I think that it also helps you to kind of be in the trenches of the now and have new ideas and more ideas. And that is, as a host of a podcast, you interview successful salespeople, and it's such an amazing opportunity. Just like right now, I'm being inspired by you. I'm being reminded of things I already forgot. I learned from this. When you interview people, you don't only create a relationship immediately with them that can be a relationship for life. You also just have this opportunity to pick their brain in a way. What do you think about that? How do you choose your interviewees these days?
Yeah, I agree with you. So I interview CEOs because I want to know what is on the mind of the CEO. I want to know how they built their sales, if they're doing it differently or if they're doing it in a very traditional way. I want to hear what CEOs are doing, what's working and what's not. That's a great learning for me. You're absolutely right. So my podcast is absolutely one of the best ways that I learn things. So I pick CEOs who are doing interesting things. They're usually CEOs of tech companies. They're almost always the founder as well, but they're not usually startups. They're usually a couple of years in. Sometimes I do interview an earlier stage CEO, but I am learning from them all the time. And so I'm just picking people who are doing interesting things. I follow them on LinkedIn, or somebody tells me about them and I'm reading and I'm like, oh, I really like the way they're doing that. I want to interview them and have them tell our audience about what they're doing. And again, what's working and what's not working. So I start to hear, oh, there's these common themes from all these CEOs, right? And it's very interesting to me. And I learn a lot that way as well. And then I also will interview some experts, people who have information about go-to-market strategies or about creative thinking or about how to do some things differently. and have them share things that will really help those CEOs. And I always learn from them too. I'm taking so many notes while I'm podcasting because I'm learning things as well. So yes, you are absolutely right. It's another great tool for me. Not everybody out there who owns a business is going to start a podcast because it's a lot of work, as you know, Ziv. But it is a great way. And even if you don't have a podcast that you publish, you can still certainly interview people and record those interviews and take those transcripts and put the learnings together and then publish them back out in another way. It doesn't necessarily have to be a podcast.
Right. It could be a YouTube video, it could be a blog, it could be an ebook, it could be a book. So I want to ask you, Alice, how important is the podcast for you, for your business? Can you actually point, because you understand sales, you always look for, spotting where the sales came from, right? So can you point to the podcast as a tool that facilitates direct sales for you?
So oddly enough, it didn't work out exactly the way that I thought it would. So I'm going to tell you guys the real story, right? So I am well over 150 episodes. I don't know exactly how many at this moment, but several years ago when I started the podcast, I think it's been like 3.5 years now, I didn't want to write a book, but I wanted more visibility, right? So I was like, oh, why don't I podcast? I'm really good on video. I'm a good interviewer, good moderator. This will be fun. I'll start a podcast. Not really knowing what I didn't know, right? But anyway, it was my way to have some more visibility without writing a book. So I started off and was just interviewing the CEOs. Now, in the beginning, it was pretty rudimentary. Didn't know a lot about podcasting. Had some help producing it though, which was great because I don't want to sit around and edit video, right? But if you're thinking about podcasting, contact me first or contact Ziv because there's a lot more to it than people actually realize. So anyway, and it's costly because you're not going to do it all yourself or else your business will not thrive because it's almost a full-time job to do the podcast. So anyway, I started doing that. And I thought, oh, this is great. I will just interview the exact type of CEO that I want to work with, right? Why not? How perfect would that be? And I did, but I did not get any direct business from it. The people who were on my podcast did not hire me. And interestingly enough, I did, of course, interview some of my current customers, my CEOs, and have them on the show, but they were already paying me, right? They were already my customers. So I thought it would drive more leads. Now I say that, but here the queen of sales is telling you, maybe I didn't do the follow-up very well, right? So you're thinking, okay, you interview these people and you are just talking with them for like 30 minutes and getting the story out of them. But then what? So if you want to have a podcast that produces leads for you, you have to follow up. Just like any other lead source, right? You've got to book an appointment with them like 2 weeks out in the future and then talk about the podcast and hopefully it'll be published by then or soon and you can talk about that. And then ask them about a couple of things you learned from them during the podcast. So in the beginning, I wasn't doing it, right? And to be honest, I'm still not really doing it consistently. Some of the CEOs I interview, I hear something and I'm like, oh my gosh, when we're done recording, I said, let's talk again. I think I can help you with that. And I never go at it with directly, hey, I'm going to try to sell you my service. I'm just there to help because I believe that selling is helping and solving. And that's the way I approach everything. I will give you help. And if that turns into you needing more help that you're willing to pay me for, fantastic. And if not, be on your merry way and do whatever, take the advice I gave you and do good with it. So I think that a podcast can be a good lead generator for you if, just like anything else, you do the proper follow-up.
I love it. And I think that it probably did serve you anyway, because even if it didn't create direct sales or leads, in terms of establishing your authority, I think it serves you really, really well. And just like you were considering writing a book, this is a very valid point that a podcast works like a book in establishing your authority. So when people do get to you through the other ways that you do sales and create leads for yourself, they see how active you are. And I even think that it allows you to duplicate yourself, because while you're busy training, some company, your future clients are listening to your show and are acknowledging that you have the skills.
And Ziv, I have had people message me and say, I listened to your podcast. Can I talk with you? And so in that way, absolutely, right? People do follow me because I put out good content. I'm always helping. And my podcasts are interesting. They like to hear what the CEOs have to say. They like to hear what the experts are offering. And so they do look at me as an authority. So I do believe in that way. It has actually grown my following, of course, which is always great. And it has prompted some people to contact me. But really, most of my business comes from one of two things. A CEO who I did great work for tells another CEO, and that's always been my number one. Or I've spoken to a group of CEOs, so they saw me live in person or maybe on video, and they realize that I have information that they need and that I can help them. And so they call me after the event and ask if they can work with me or find out more about it. So I think those are things that everyone should consider. If you're not working your referral network and making sure that people know, right, that you could use a few new customers, make sure you're doing that. And then find the opportunities to speak in front of your ideal customer. It's amazing what can happen.
I love it. I want to wrap up soon, but first I have to hear your short version of the question of like vibe selling. Is it like an AI in selling? Is that something people should consider? What do you think about that?
Yeah, you got a couple hours. So
I need the too long didn't read version.
You asked the wrong person about this. Okay, here we go. So if you want to hear me really rant about vibe selling, then go to my podcast and find that episode. So every once in a while, I throw in a solo episode when I feel like I have something I need to say that is just so important. And they're shorter episodes, so like 15 minutes. But I saw on the internet the other day somebody talking about vibe selling, and I just went ballistic, right? What is vibe selling? It came from vibe coding. Well, they really don't have much in common, and to kind of extrapolate off of vibe coding to vibe selling, I'm not too happy about it. So I did a little bit of research. I asked ChatGPT what on earth that was and wanted to figure out just exactly how people were using these terms. And so here's what I have to say. Vibe selling, they were trying to refer to using AI in selling. Well, first of all, in selling, really, there's nothing new under the sun. Here's the deal. There are people out there who need what you sell. If there weren't, you'd be out of business. So those humans who need what you sell, right? They're out there trying to figure out how to get it. Now, they may not need it this minute, but they're going to need it at some time. So it's your job as a company to put the right humans out there and the right messaging out there so that you attract those people who need what you sell, and you build relationships with them so that when they need it, they think of you, right? And so that can be all the great marketing that you do and all the social media that you do and all the communication from your salespeople, the trade shows you attend, the events you invite them to, all of those things, right? But it's very simple and basic. There are humans who need what you sell. It's your job to approach them in a way that makes them want to talk to you, makes them feel you're an authority, makes them trust you so that you are the ones they consider when they are ready to buy. So that's that. There's, I don't know what vibe about that is, but it's always been that way. Now, the other thing is that humans make decisions the exact same way they made them 100, 200, probably even 1,000 years ago. Our brains have not changed in that way. We discover that we need something, right? And then we have to think about that for a minute, like, well, what is it exactly that we need? Okay. And then we kind of noodle that around. And then we start to go, okay, what are the possible ways that I can get that or solve for that or change that? And then once I know that, then I can narrow it down, right? To, do I need to purchase something to do that? Can I do it on my own? Can I do it internally? Right. I get all those options and then I pick one. That is the way humans decide, right? Now, when they're in a group, it makes it a lot more complicated because they might all be going through that process at a different place and time. Okay, knowing that, then what's different? Well, what's different is the behavior, right? And back to my early days of learning how to change behavior. So buyer behavior has changed. How is AI going to impact that? Well, they're using AI to search for you, to learn about you, to choose you. Their behavior has changed. The problem is the seller behavior has not changed. They're still using old methods that do not work, and they are not meeting the customer where they are. So we have a huge disconnect. Now, vibe selling, by definition of what I read anyway, is using AI to find customer insights and to help you sell. Now, yes, can we use AI to make us more efficient and effective? Yes, to free us up to be more creative and to have more time to be more human and communicate, not for the AI to do the communication. No, absolutely not. And when you ask AI for the insights, you are making a huge mistake because it can only give you what's out there on the internet. You have to talk to humans if you want human insights. You have customers, go talk to them. Ask them directly. Do not depend on AI for that. Depend on AI to take administrative tasks off of your plate, to make you more efficient and effective so you have the time to be with those humans who can potentially buy from you.
I love it. And so many times when you're trying to vibe sell and like research with AI, it makes so many assumptions about people's problems. And you can solve theoretical problems invented by AI for hundreds of years and not make $1 single. Right. If someone is telling you, a human being tells you, here's my problem, here's how I feel about it, here's what I want, here's what I need, now you can work with that as a salesperson and as a CEO. Alice Heiman, this has been a pleasure to geek out on selling and to learn about your journey in it. And we're going to put in the show notes the full rant episode so that people can listen to that. Where can people go if they want to learn more about you, Alice?
Yeah, please go to aliceheiman.com. Everything's there, including my blog, my podcast. And then if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'd be delighted. But you have to say that you heard me here on Ziv's show. When you make that connection request, you say, hey, I heard you on Ziv's show.
We're actually going to put that into the show notes, like what to tell, what to remind Alice. Wonderful. And this has been just really fun to see you in action. Your energy is just so delightful and motivating. I want to thank you for taking the time to connect with us. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Beyond Six Figures.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Six Figures. Check out the extended show notes that include bonus material, practical tips, and exclusive resources on our website, zivraviv.com. Until next time, keep dreaming big and pushing your business and your life beyond six figures.